In this video we're going to look at hardware communication, and in particular these things called buffers and interrupts. Our computers need to be able to connect up to other devices, so they might connect up to output devices such as printers or input devices such as scanners, and the actual connections and cabling that they use we will learn about later on in the course. But for now we need to know how the PC communicates with such devices. We know that data sent from a PC to a printer will be in the form of binary, zeros and ones. But exactly how is this sending of data actually managed? Well, this is where these things called buffers and interrupts come in. First of all, buffers. If we looked up buffers in a dictionary, we might find this sort of definition: any device, material or apparatus used as a shield or cushion or bumper, especially on machinery. And we might be familiar with the sight of something like a train buffer, where we have these little things sticking out the end of trains that basically cushion one carriage from another, so that the carriages don't actually bump into each other, only the buffers do. That might help us start to visualize in our minds how buffers work in computers. Another place where we might have seen buffers in use is when we are watching streamed video online. So you will often see the buffering symbol appearing in the middle of a video if the internet connection isn't allowing enough video through at that time. So what is happening when it says it's buffering is it filling up a space in the computer's memory with enough video so that your video can keep playing seamlessly without stopping. So though when you're watching a streamed video, it's containing a space in the computer's memory that has video footage in there already downloaded so that it plays nice and smooth. When a PC talks to a device such as a printer, it isn't actually the PC that is talking to the printer, it's actually the processor inside the PC, or the CPU, the brains of the computer that communicates with the printer. And because the brains of the computer, the CPU, works a lot faster than a printer can actually print material out, what happens is the CPU will actually send data into a buffer inside the printer, which is basically some memory space on the printer to be able to store ones and zeros and details about what needs printing out next. This frees up the resources of the processor so that it can do a different job. It doesn't have to wait for the printer, it can do another processing task. So a good definition of a computer buffer for use in an exam might be something like this: small areas of memory or storage that act to temporarily store data while it is waiting to be used or to be sent somewhere else. This allows the processor to do other jobs whilst the job stored in the buffer waits to be completed. And if you need to provide an example, you might give the printer example. A printer will have a buffer whose job it is to store the work sent from the processor while the printer prints it out. This lets the processor get on with something else and not have to wait until the printout is finished before it can carry on. So what are interrupts? Well, we've all been interrupted rudely at some point during our lives, and we've probably interrupted other people too. So we know what an interruption is. So how does this relate to computing? Well, let's try to explain. So the processor, the brains of the computer, is busy working away on something important, whilst our printer is printing something out and still receiving data from its buffer in order to print out a document. When it's finished printing out that document, the buffer is empty. So the printer says to the processor, hey, I'm going to interrupt you. Have you got some more data for me to print out? The printer stops what it's currently working on, sends back some data to the printer to fill up its buffer again. Onto a definition for an exam. Messages sent from other places, these can be peripherals or other internal components, to the processor in order to stop the processor's current task so it can tend to another task. Put it into the perspective of an example. When a printer runs out of data in its buffer, it sends an interrupt to the processor asking for more data for its buffer so that the printer can carry on. A little bit more on interrupts. There are many different types of interrupt, and therefore the processor will prioritize different interrupts in case it receives more than one at the same time. You might ask, how do interrupted jobs resume once they've been interrupted? There's also something to think about called double buffering and also spooling, and you'll find out lots more about these things if you go on to study at A2 computing and that particular unit. One thing you might need to know for your AS exam is about this prioritizing of interrupts. Thinking about exam questions, these are the sort of things you might get asked on. Definitions of buffers, definitions of interrupts, an explanation of the whole process of filling up buffers, emptying buffers, interrupts, and then refilling buffers. Thanks for watching. Hope that was useful for you.